This program is brought to you by Emory University.
There is not a student or attorney in this room who has not dedicated their time solely to the benefit of our community. In fact, this room is full of attorneys who on a regular basis empower us as students to pursue our dreams in public interest. I am constantly astounded at the generous donations we receive every year to fund public interest grants and the attorneys willing to provide career advice and mentorship to students here at Emory Law. I'm constantly astounded that you all donate time and resources so that students can focus on changing the world the right way instead of on things on like how to pay for rent and groceries. I mean, the public defenders here will tell you how hard it is for their clients to do the right thing when they have to worry about paying for rent and groceries. Welcome to the 24th Annual Epic Inspiration Awards. If we haven't met or worked together already, my name is Savita Sivakumar, and I'm this year's president. I'm honored to be in this position, to be at the helm of an organization that I think brings together the best and most generous hearts at our law school. I'd like to take a moment and thank those who have brought us all here tonight. First, our IA chairs, Stephanie Bowers, Sam Riley, and Matt Rohr for all their work on this event. Second, the rest of the Epic board for being there every step of the way and doing your part to keep Emory an open space. Next, Dean Sheffy for all her hard work that she does supporting this event and supporting Epic all year. And next, our honorees for being here to inspire us and the community around us. Finally, I'd also like to thank the rest of you for being here, for joining us tonight to celebrate the attorneys and students that inspire us. I hope we can convince you to love us a little more and make sure that we get every student an Epic grant this year. I hope you all have had a wonderful evening so far. We have a lot in store, and I encourage each of you to make a real connection with either another lawyer or a future lawyer here tonight. Whether you're a defense attorney who is clueless about environmental law or an LGBTQ civil rights lawyer less aware of the challenges in immigration law, we're all fighting for the same thing, a better world. It's important that we understand the movements that surround us in this greater fight for equality. I firmly believe that making those connections is what making that fight for equality unified. Thank you for entertaining my soapbox on why I love Epic. Without further delay, let me introduce a more recent inspiration at Emory Law, the first ever dean to attend a volunteer event, Dean Babinski.
So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 24th Epic Inspiration Award. And I wanted to point out that in my 6 months as Dean at Emory Law, I've already been deeply influenced, and I hate to overuse this word, actually inspired, by the opportunity to work with Epic's students, with the leadership of Epic, the members of Epic. And I have to say, this event was on my schedule before I officially arrived here. One of my first meetings was with Savita. I've had frequent meetings where students have a chance to talk with me about their passion for public interest work, their desire to ensure that public service is always a part of how they move forward as Emory Law graduates, and their hope that we can all work together to find ways for the Emory Law community to contribute to the broader world. And so let me, at the outset, just say thank you to our Epic students for their passion and their advocacy for what I know will be the work that we'll engage in together in the coming years to ensure the growth of public interest at Emory Law. So tonight we have the opportunity to honor people who've made extraordinary contributions to the public good. We're going to be talking about the importance of public service, celebrating recent public interest achievements, and having the opportunity to rededicate ourselves to the ideals of public interest and to the special role that lawyers play in our society. I want to add my congratulations to this year's honorees, and to just take a few moments to talk a little bit about this idea that Emory Law has been moving forward with over the past 5 years which is to talk about public service as being integral to all of our students. And you heard Dean Sheffy talk about this a minute ago in the video. The idea that, yes, we have EPIC, yes, we have clinical opportunities and externship programs, which I'll talk about in a moment, and we have strong focus on public interest. But our desire is to make sure that we can put all of those programs together to ensure that all 1,000 students at Emory Law have the opportunity to engage with public interest and public service and to see this as a part of their lives moving forward. So I've been told as dean I only have 1 minute. This is shocking and completely incompatible with the notes I have in front of me. But I will hurry through. And you know, people say, well, the dean is the boss. Well, not when it comes to students holding up signs that say 1 minute. So the ideal that Emory sought to achieve was going to be carrying forward through this Center for Public Service that's led by Assistant Dean for Public Service Rita Sheffy, who you saw in the video a moment ago. And within that center, we have advice for students regarding public interest and governmental careers. We're working with students to see judicial clerkships as an important way to give back to the promotion of justice, and programming that talks about public interest, that engages students with pro bono activities, and provides them an avenue to help address communities in need. This is part of a core effort at Emory Law to ensure that our students have these opportunities. But I also need to mention tonight, of course, our vibrant externship programs and the way they allow our students to actually engage with public interest activities while they're in school. And to mention, for those of you who haven't heard, that we have a new externship director, Derek Howard, who is interested in supporting externships and developing more externships, and so I'll just throw that out there. We have our clinical programs, the International Humanitarian Law Clinic, the Internal Environmental Clinic, and of course the 3 clinics that are offered through the Barton Child Law and Policy Center. Beyond that, we have the volunteer clinics that run through the Center for Public Interest, including the Emory Law Clinic for Veterans, which is notable in several ways. For those who are anxious to see us build our focus on public interest, I'll mention that the clinic recently welcomed back Keir Prince, graduated in 2018 as an Equal Justice Works Fellow, who's working with veterans who have PTSD and traumatic brain injury on looking at how to adjust and upgrade their discharge status so that they can obtain benefits. And we recently welcomed back Carlissa Carson, a graduate in 2008 as a staff attorney with that clinic. We were honored to recently receive money from the Arthur Blank Foundation to allow that clinic to continue and expand its work. Of course, beyond all those activities, I'll return to where I began. There's the EPIC committee. That group of students who carry the passion for public interest into everything they do. And I'd like to join others in thanking our co-chairs, Stephanie Bauer, Sam Riley, and Matthew Rohr for their work on this evening's events, and to acknowledge again Sabita Sivakumar for her service as EPIC president. Finally, I wanted to go back to the theme that we keep hearing about, which is how we actually support students to do this work. And there's no doubt that the EPIC grants are vital for our ability to actually allow students to take their passion, to take their inspiration out in the world, to get the experience they need to contribute to the public interest, and to help them find a bridge to the careers and to the other forms of public service work that we hope will be a core part of their identity moving forward. In the time that I've been here, I've had a chance to talk with many students and faculty about the EPIC awards, the grants, and how important it is to recognize those who've supported those grants over many years. And so I just wanted to say, on behalf of the law school, as dean, thank you for your willingness to invest in the future of public interest and our students. Beyond a thank you, a dean always has an additional ask. I was just at in a conversation a few moments ago, and I was told that nearly double the number of students interested in EPIC this year as in previous years. And so therefore we anticipate a steep increase in the number of students who will be seeking these EPIC grants moving forward. So those of you who have given, thank you very much. Those of you who have yet to give or who feel that you suddenly found a blank check in your pocket, we'd be delighted to have even more support to allow us to grow this program moving forward. Finally, I wanted to acknowledge Mark and Rebecca Wasserman for their generous gift to support the award that will be given to a third-year student for outstanding commitment to public service. So with those thanks and those entreaties to do even more, I'd like to welcome Rita Sheffy to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Babinski, and welcome, everyone. Each year, we start off the Inspiration Awards with presentation of the award to an outstanding 3L who has demonstrated a commitment to public interest. And as you heard the Dean say, thanks to a generous donation from 1986 alum Mark Wasserman and his wife Rebecca, that's now named for him. Students for this award are nominated by their fellow classmates and by faculty and staff, and the recipient selected by a committee of the faculty. It is my honor to have been asked by this year's recipient to make this presentation, and I'm going to ask her to come up to the stage while I say a few remarks about her. Lyndon Waite arrived on our campus 2.5 years ago as a Woodruff Fellow who was already committed to public interest, specifically serving immigrants and refugees. I work with many students passionate about public interest work, but none are more dedicated and consistent than Lyndon. As a 1L, she quickly engaged in the work of the International Refugee Assistance Project, known as IRAP, as a caseworker, advancing to vice president last year and now Emory chapter director. As a 1L, she also began supporting the Georgia Immigration Working Group alongside Professor Silas Allard, work she continued through her 2L year. When we started our volunteer immigration clinic, Emory Immigrant Legal Services, in August 2018, Lyndon was one of the first volunteers and has volunteered most months since. And as you saw in the video, she received an EPIC grant both summers for working with the Access to Law Foundation and then Atlanta Legal Aid in its Gwinnett office. Lyndon has been an extern with the Tahirih Justice Center immediately after Tahirih opened its Atlanta office, then with Project South. Currently, she's with the City of Atlanta Public Defender's Office, working with Emory alum Jenny Hernandez, who returned to Atlanta to continue pursuing her passion of supporting immigrants. In Lyndon's spare time, she has volunteered with the Raksha Domestic Violence Pro Bono Project and with the Global Village Project. With Global Village, she tutored students at a special purpose middle school for refugee girls. Now, I've heard that some law students, in other schools of course, tend to slack off a bit in their third year, but not Lyndon. She and several other particularly industrious students conceived of, planned, and 10 days ago presented a comprehensive workshop focused on trauma-informed legal services. More than 80 people attended the Saturday event focusing on developing trauma-informed client communication skills to avoid re-traumatizing clients in the course of serving their legal needs. And none of these activities begin to address what an outstanding student she is, how patient and even-tempered, or how much fun she is just to sit and talk with. After graduation, Lyndon will move to New York and spend 2 years with the Immigration Court as part of the Department of Justice Honors Program, a selective and highly competitive program. And I'm confident this will be the beginning of a successful and rewarding career of service. In the video you saw earlier, Lyndon talked about what the EPIC grant had meant to her, giving you a glimpse of her passion. And recently I asked her where she got her inspiration and motivation. She quickly said her mother's experience as a social worker helped set her moral compass and focus her on service. Lyndon's mom couldn't be here with us this evening, but I'm sure she'll watch the video, and I can only imagine how proud she must be of her daughter. I know I am too. Please join me in congratulating this year's recipient of the Mark and Rebecca Wasserman Public Service Award, Lyndon Waite.
2 Saturdays ago, I spent the day with my mother and about 12,000 other people, not far from the downtown office of the Atlanta Legal Aid Society, Oprah Winfrey had invited all of us to spend the day with her inside the State Farm Arena. Perhaps many of you were there as well. She waxed wisdom through the entire day-long experience, but in a nutshell, Oprah challenged each one of us to seize the moment, the new year, the new decade, that very day, and to make a commitment to our life's purpose and to be intentional in marking our steps along our journey. Our honoree, Michelle Jordan, has a BA from the University of Pennsylvania, and it was there during her college days that Michelle developed a deep desire to help the least of these, the individuals that she saw living on the grates in the depth of winter. She laughs when recalling how inept she felt as a college volunteer, dishing up and serving soup to guests at the shelters. There must be another way to help, she thought. She followed her intention, set in the 7th grade, and applied to law school. Michelle knew that she was born to excel in advocacy, negotiation, and persuasive argument, and she chartered a career path devoted to improving the lives of the homeless, the indigent, victims, and those without voices. Michelle received her JD from Emory University's School of Law, and 4 years later, she transitioned into public interest work as a family lawyer, family law attorney for the Georgia Law Center for the Homeless. That's where I first encountered Michelle. She was an attorney sitting patiently in my courtroom right next to her client, who, as I recall, was a physician from India whose husband was financially abusive and fighting to retain sole custody of their child and to receive 100% share of an equitable division of marital property. Michelle was prepared, a born fighter, and achieved a good outcome for her client. She has worked throughout her career with abused children. She's represented victims in temporary protective order hearings, and she has provided numerous attorney consultants with individuals that are unrepresented when they come to court for their family law cases. Michelle is highly sought after for CLE seminars, and in fact, my adjunct faculty team here at Emory Law has invited her as a recurring guest to speak to our Advanced Civil Litigation Techniques class. We wanted our students to hear from Michelle. You see her accomplishments in the program. I decided to close my remarks by trying to play Oprah and ask Michelle a few personal questions. Michelle's goal is to improve her client's circumstances one step at a time. She used to feel guilty when comparing her blessings to the challenges of her students, but now she's learned to create more separation between work and home, indulge in some TLC, and she loves to eat cake without apologizing. She wants her clients to feel like she's heard them and treated them well and helped them to achieve progress on their own journeys. Her advice to new lawyers, students maybe in this auditorium, is to find fulfillment in public service and be committed to the ballot because it's worth it. She would like to do a few things for herself soon, like travel to Japan and write a book about her client's true grit, maybe from the top of Mount Fuji. But I decided that I needed to speak to Rachel about her mother, and this is what she said in closing. Mom is goofy. She's humble. She's a karaoke diva, a super neurotic, a genius, a fighter, insane, and all things comic book, and the best breakfast maker, soccer fan, and dance recital mom ever. Please join me in recognizing this year's recipient of the Unsung Devotion to Those Most in Need Epic Award.
I am so grateful for this award. I share this honor with my amazing Atlanta Legal Aid family law team, Lori, Courtney, Nilu, and Anna, and our fantastic family law alumni, including my colleague for 10 years, who is a true unsung hero, Megan Miller. I'm grateful for the support of my family and my friends, especially those from the Emory Law class of 1992. And I'm thankful for all of my talented colleagues at Atlanta Legal Aid. I have always wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was a child. When I was a middle schooler, I imagined myself in a fancy suit with a black briefcase, cleverly solving my friends' problems in court. In law school here at Emory, I imagined a future filled with brief writing, cross-examination, and wise closing arguments. However, in college, I was troubled by the homelessness I saw every day near campus. But somehow, I didn't immediately see a connection between that problem and the legal career I had always imagined. When I finally became an attorney, my life was filled with brief writing, cross-examinations, and closing arguments. But in public interest work, I discovered that the key to success was actually in the power of our community. The community was the experienced family law attorney who showed me how to draft my first family violence protective order when I left private practice, the paralegals at the Law Center for the Homeless, who after a full day of work started client outreach at 7 o'clock at night at homeless shelters across the city, the mom from my kids' school who brought me a bag full of children's books so that our clients' kids could be entertained while their parents got the help that they needed, and supporters everywhere who donate to and volunteer with Atlanta Legal Aid. Our clients are the bravest people I know. They help us prepare their cases while dealing with physical injuries, worrying about eviction or foreclosure, and caring for their children or their grandchildren. It is an honor to work with each and every one of them. But today, most of all, I am grateful for the community of my fellow advocates who run to the battle for those in need every day. It is a blessing and a privilege to work with these dedicated legal professionals who give their all to get justice for our clients. Their strength makes me proud to be a lawyer. Tonight, the reality of being a lawyer is so much better than I imagined it as a child. My work at Atlanta Legal Aid has taught me the true value of community, and I am so thankful to all of you who are a part of the community that supports the work of Atlanta Legal Aid. Thank you.
I am going to tell you two stories about why we are honoring Rick Horder with the outstanding leadership in the public interest. The first started with a lunch back in the 90s with Steve Gottlieb. I was not there, but this is urban legend. Apparently, Steve was telling Rick about how the crack epidemic in the late 90s had destroyed families in the low-income community. Families were being torn apart, children were being scattered, DFACS was not able to keep up with the demand for foster homes. And so they were placing the children with family members, grandparents, people who had retired and expected to live out their lives in the comfort that their Social Security enabled them. And these children were being placed with these families. But the problem, or the bigger problem, was that then the parents would get straight for a little bit and they'd come back and they'd take the children back, and then the children would be located in these crack houses and the yo-yo would begin over and over again. So Steve was telling this story to Rick Horter, who is an environmental lawyer by profession, but an adoption lawyer by passion. And Rick, in his way, said, I know how to fix that. And he did. He said, we can use the adoption laws, and by the way, Rick did write the adoption code. He said, we can use the adoption laws and we can stabilize these children's lives by having these family members adopt them. Instead of putting them in the foster care system, we can have the families, the grandparents and the aunts and uncles, adopt these children, keeping them within their greater family system, but stabilize them so that these parents who were addicted cannot come back and whisk them away. And so they did this. But there was still a little bit of a problem, and that was who is going to support this second generation of children? And Rick said, well, I think we can fix that too. And he figured out a way for there to be adoption, what is known as adoption assistance. And this adoption assistance subsidized these grandparents and aunts and uncles to support these families as they raised a second generation of families. So what Rick did is he went to his firm, which was Kilpatrick Cody at the time, and then to all the other firms in Atlanta, and he trained all the lawyers around Atlanta. Many of you probably were trained to do this as well. And we all became adoption lawyers, and we all did adoptions for these grandparents and relative caregivers, and that is what is known as the Grandparent Adoption Program, or the Relative Caregiver Program, which Michelle helps administer at Atlanta Legal Aid. And thousands, a couple of thousand actually, children in the last 25 years have had their lives stabilized. They, of course, have grown and probably have children of their own. And it was because Rick sat at lunch with Steve Gottlieb and said, I know how to fix this. So that's my first story. The second story also began in the late 90s. Rick was looking around the country, and some large law firms in the larger cities, in San Francisco and in Washington, D.C., and in New York, not yet in the South, we were a little slower to come up with this idea. But some of these large law firms were starting to up their game in how they administered pro bono legal services. So instead of just having pro bono committees where lawyers in the firm, in addition to the billable hours and their rainmaking, also sat on a committee and tried to get people to do pro bono work, the law firms were starting to designate a lawyer or two to administer a program, a practice department, to administer the law firm pro bono work. And Rick looked around and said, well, this sounds like a really good idea. And he did some research, and he went to the leadership of his firm and he said, why don't we do this? And the firm, which was by then Kilpatrick Stockton, said, okay, we can do this. Now, with full disclosure, a lot of you in this room know that, but I became, of course, the beneficiary of this great idea, so I had personal interest in that. But I got the job, and we developed a department, and what happened was this tsunami effect, because not only did we start doing some great pro bono work, but all the firms looked around and said, wow, it looks like they're having a really great time, maybe we can do that. And so the law firms started doing it, the law students started saying, well, do you have a pro bono partner? And do you have a pro bono department? And the other law firms around Atlanta started doing that. And then the in-house legal department said, well, this looks like fun. Maybe we can have a pro bono department, and maybe we can have an organized pro bono program. And what happened in Atlanta 20 years ago, because Rick Horter had this great idea, I bet none of you knew that, but Rick Horter had this great idea and he acted on it. And as a result, Atlanta has this world-class pro bono culture that has saved the lives of victims of violence and victims of trafficking and people whose civil rights have been violated, and has just done the most spectacular work that we all should be enormously proud of. And that is why we are honoring Rick with the Outstanding Leadership in the Public Interest Award today. So I give you Rick Horter.
So if you don't know why I hired Debbie before, now you do. It's a great honor to be here. I look out, I've been at a number of these events because so many, I'm in the company of such great people. Debbie Siegel's a former honoree. I know Steve Gottlieb is here. Mary Margaret Oliver is here. Rita Sheffy, your own Rita Sheffy. That's pretty embarrassing company to be included in, and I'm very honored to be in this company. I'm also honored to be up here today because Dorothy Beasley is being honored today, and I've known I consider Dorothy a friend since 1974 when we were both at the U.S. Attorney's Office. She's a great judge and a great person, and it's a privilege to be on the same podium with her at the same time she's receiving her award, which is so well deserved. Rita said I should be inspirational, and I'm not sure I can do that, but I do want to talk a little bit about why I've done pro bono work for most of the 45 years that I've been a lawyer, and why I think everybody should do it, particularly younger lawyers. There's lots of good reasons. First of all, there's the canons that require us to provide assistance to the underrepresented or the unrepresented, those that need legal assistance. That's a perfectly moral, ethical, and right thing to do reason. But I think there's at least 2 or 3 other really good reasons. First of all, it's the experience you get, and this is particularly true for younger lawyers. One of the, you know, Kilpatrick started the program. We hired Debbie as the first pro bono partner in Atlanta. But in some sense, it was a very selfish act. Lawyers in big law firms don't get much exposure to cases. They get little snips and bits and go into the library and spend 4 hours researching this particular matter. And they don't get to handle client interviews. They don't get to do their own cases. And so if you're a young lawyer and you take on pro bono matters, you're going to get a lot of experience that you would not otherwise get for many years. You're going to handle your own clients. You're going to handle your own motions. You might even get to do your own settlement negotiations and maybe even your own trial. And that kind of experience as a young lawyer, which maybe you're not going to get for 4 or 5 years, is going to set you apart from your peers. So there's a selfish reason because it gives you great experience that you would not otherwise have. Secondly is exposure. If you get involved in pro bono matters that are sort of outside, I am an environmental lawyer. I've been an environmental lawyer for over 40 years. I've done a number of other things, child custody and a lot of adoption matters. When you do that, you grow. You get outside of your comfort zone and you get exposed to people you would not otherwise get involved with. You get to know judges like Judge Toussaint. I'm sure that the judge would agree that when she knows somebody's handling a matter pro bono, she appreciates that because otherwise the person would be there pro se. And so you get exposed to judges, you get exposed to other lawyers, you get exposed to nonprofit organizations that need help. And all of that sort of marks you as a person of character and commitment. And believe me, that stands you in good stead as you move forward in your life and your legal career. But the real reason to do it, those are all great selfish reasons, but the real reason to do it is the rewards that you get. You don't get monetary rewards. I've done a lot of complex and large matter cases and large judgment cases and 8 and 10 week trials and that kind of thing. And they've been wonderful, and I'm very proud of the work that I've done for a nice hourly rate. But I can say unequivocally, the matters that I have handled that have been pro bono are the ones that have been the most rewarding to me personally. It's one thing to help somebody. Most of my cases are ultimately about money. My client has polluted somebody else's property, or somebody's polluted my client's property, or the government wants a fine, or something like that. But the kind of cases that you do pro bono are usually not about money. They're about people's lives. They're custody cases, or they're adoption cases, or they're asylum cases, or they're immigration cases, or they're mortgage foreclosure cases. And those cases have a profound and long-term impact on people's lives. And believe me, when you help somebody with one of those, you're a hero to them, and you're a savior, and you make a profound difference in their lives. So I see that I've already got 1 minute, so like the dean, I'm going to have to throw out all my notes. I was going to tell you a story about a pro bono handled, that pro bono matter I handled that was actually an environmental matter, but that would take more time than I've got, so you can ask me about it outside. I urge you, though, if you are a young lawyer starting your career, don't just do the work that you are hired to do or the work that you think you want to do. Stretch yourself and go out and do some pro bono work, because you'll get rewards beyond your dreams. Thank you.
I've shaved. Much to my wife's joy. I was so pleased to be asked to present this award to the Honorable Dorothy Toth Beasley, the daughter of a judge, graduate of the American University College of Law, founded in 1896 by women, for women. I might note as an aside that Emory Law School started 20 years later with an entering class that was 50% women. It was a class of 2 students. Dorothy came to Atlanta from Washington, D.C. After a brief period in private practice. She joined the Georgia Attorney General's office, thus beginning her distinguished public service career. After serving our state in the Attorney General's office, she continued her public service by moving to the U.S. Attorney's office. In 1977, Governor George Busbee appointed her to the State Court of Fulton County, and in 1984, Governor Joe Frank Harris appointed Dorothy to the State Court of Appeals, the first woman to join that bench. When you are lucky enough to know Dorothy, you want to introduce her to others because of the joy and depth she brings to everything she does. So when she came to me in my capacity as Associate Dean to inquire about international study, I encouraged her to enroll in Emory's International LOM program offered jointly with Central European University in Budapest, Hungary. Or maybe I pushed her so I could have a semester free from her coming by with yet another great idea for the law school. A lot of energy. I knew the program would not only benefit Dorothy's learning, but also that her participation in it would benefit those who studied with her. My secret plan to have Dorothy become an Emory alum. It has been a boon to Emory and its international LOM program. She has mentored so many women who have come to Emory from abroad as LOM students or scholars in residence. When they make return visits to Atlanta, she provides home hospitality so they are saved from a stay in an impersonal hotel. She is the law school's welcoming committee of one. Dorothy Toth Beasley is a force of nature. She uses her boundless energy to participate in a myriad of activities and organizations, always with a smile and a twinkle in her eyes, but also with reverence and integrity. That's true for anything Dorothy commits herself to. She's not just strong, she's powerful. She has taken the role of alumnus seriously, and the students of Emory, particularly the women of Emory, are beneficiaries of the work she has done because she has brought honor to this institution, this state, and our country. I am humbled to be here to present the Lifetime Commitment to Public Service Award to a most deserving recipient, the Honorable Dorothy Toth Beasley.
Don't tell his wife, she's in Boston. So. Great lady, Libby is. Well, Dean Bobinski and Assistant Dean Sheffy and President Siva Kumar, is that right? Good. And friends, now that I've done that, you can start the clock, but not before. And I should say all those who are on the EPIC board as well. I know how hard you work, and I'm so proud of the work that you do. It opens the door for so many people. I truly do not feel worthy to accept this award because I'm only just one of many, many, many judges and lawyers who are serving the public in a myriad of ways. So let this honor be for them, and I'll just be a representative of them. Truly, I feel that way. As for me, it's been a privilege to serve in the public service for the majority of my career, and that itself is a reward enough. But each position that I held was brought about by people who had confidence in me and trusted me to do the job. I was like the turtle that I once saw perched on a fence post. I said, "How did it get there? Turtles don't know how to climb." Well, pretty obviously somebody put it up there. Well, that's me, a turtle. I gained the positions that I held not on my own, but rather by those who put me in them. In large measure, it was their confidence and trust which opened the way, and my regard for them which inspired me. We all need somebody else to help us, to lift us up, to get our backs. I can't name all the people who helped me along the way, but the ones who put me in public service were Arthur Bolton as Attorney General of Georgia, John Stokes as U.S. Attorney for the Northern District, Governor Busby for the State Court of Fulton County, and Governor Joe Frank Harris for the Court of Appeals. But there were so many others, too, that I were inspired by and taught me, beginning with my own father. That was probably the first person. You heard Nat say, he said Toth, but it's Toth, Stephen Toth. He was the son of immigrants, which just goes to show what happens to immigrant families. They didn't speak English, they didn't read or write, they were from Slovakia. He had to work hard to become a lawyer because he had to work from a young age just to help support the family, but he was determined to become a lawyer because he saw so much need about him. So without college, he commuted to the New Jersey Law School, got his degree, and then began his help. He had a sole practice, and then he became an assistant prosecutor, and finally a judge in Bergen County, New Jersey. And I wanted to do the same thing, but I didn't ever realize that I might be able to do it, and then I had the opportunity. But I was not in the first class that graduated from that law school that started for just women. Well, he and so many along the way helped me to understand and respect the majesty of the rule of law and its application to help resolve as well as prevent disputes and enable prosecution for crime. To all of them, both named and unnamed, thanks are due for placing me on the fence posts on which I was able to serve and to keep me from falling off. I want to tell you about two experiences that I had learning things that have served me throughout my career in public service. When I was in the first law firm where I practiced in Arlington, Virginia, I put up on my wall a quotation from Abraham Lincoln that has been with me since. He wrote, "I will study and get ready, and perhaps my chance will come." That didn't apply just to me in law school. That's something that lasts a lawyer throughout your career, studying and being prepared, and the chance will come. And indeed, for me, it did over and over again. A second experience I had was standing across the street from the US Supreme Court when I was going to visit there one time. And I looked up at that beautiful building and the facade, and it says, "Equal justice under law." Equal justice under law. Powerful, powerful words of promise. And I thought about the awesome privilege that I had to try to bring those words to fruition to those whose lives I affected as a public servant. And when I was working on a case, and all of you lawyers know what I mean, you're working on a case and you read and find a relevant Supreme Court opinion. And you know that it has been written in part to guide you in the decision that you're going to make in the case that's in front of you. It won't be the same case, but it may be similar. And those words are speaking right to you to take them into account when you make your decision and to be sure that it agrees with it. So that kind of takes us to the point that we see where the words issued from that high place in our nation's capital are given meaning in cases of untold numbers of people by all of us as lawyers and judges. We are the voices which give life to the law. Otherwise, it's just words. It's notable that EPIC stands for Emory Public Interest Committee because public interest encompasses not only those in public service careers such as mine, but also those in the private law sector. Rick is one. And so many of you out there are in the same position, where you can do pro bono work. You volunteer to serve in some other public interest capacity as well, over and above your careers. The Georgia Constitution's Bill of Rights provides that public officials are trustees and servants of the people and are at all times amenable to them. Well, I think the spirit of that applies to all lawyers who are trained and educated in the law, and they have a special responsibility to serve as officers of the court. Louis Brandeis, Justice Brandeis, before he went on the bench, spent so much time in public service and public matters, he was known as the people's attorney. And he helped promote the whole idea of pro bono tradition, spending at least half of his long working days on public causes. And although I'm not suggesting this here, but he reimbursed his Boston law firm for the time that he devoted to public non-paying matters. To make our American justice system work, then, we must all help deliver what the Constitution and laws provide, and further, to seek changes in the law when fairness and justice demand it. Whether representing a pro bono client or serving on the board of the Atlanta Legal Aid Society, or teaching in prison, or having the law changed with regard to refugees or the poor, these are all things that we can do and translate the promise of equal justice under law to the people who need it, real people out there around us. And you know, by engaging in public service and matters of public interest, we expressed our gratitude for living in this country, which is committed to the rule of law. I think of my experiences involving a period of anarchy in Albania, and later working on a case at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda involving the complete lawlessness which reigned during the genocide in Rwanda. Contrast that with what we have here. But it's here and will stay here only because of all of you who are engaged in public interest or in public service careers. I've learned so much, too, in reading biographies of great jurists. In fact, I just finished reading the biography of Justice Anthony Alaimo of the Southern District of Georgia. And I commend that to you, as well as biographies of Sandra Day O'Connor and Justice Ginsburg, Justice Marshall. And so I'm going to give you a book, or not give you a book, but suggest to you that you read Anthony Alaimo's biography and Justice O'Connor's, which is entitled, hers is entitled First. And it's written by historian Evan Thomas. That'll be your assignment tonight. But in all of this, whether it's equal justice under law or study and get ready and perhaps your chance will come, the third thing I want you to remember is this. It's been here for thousands and thousands of years to every generation, and we must make it anew. Justice, justice, thou shalt pursue. Thank you for listening, and thank you for the award, EPIC, which I accept on behalf of all of us who have an active interest and involvement in public service. Thanks.
It is at this point every year that we wonder if we will ever be able to reach or exceed the high bar set that year, and yet the event always rises to the challenge, and this year is no exception. Would you please join me in another round of applause for our honorees, for Michelle Jordan, Rick Porter, and Judge Beasley. And I also think we should also thank the presenters, Judge Gail Tucson, Debbie Siegel, and Professor Gazansky. Now, while honoring these outstanding public service is a very important part of the evening, just in case anyone didn't get the message earlier, the other important goal is raising money for summer grants. So if you're a student or an alum at Emory who has received an EPIC grant in the past, would you raise your hands? Wow. Okay, now for the important question of the evening. If you're a student who's planning to apply for a grant this year for 2020, raise your hands. So just to put a fine point on what Dean Babinski said at the beginning about we anticipate substantial demand this year, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but if any of you feel so inspired and compelled this evening to make an additional donation, we would definitely appreciate it. As the person who reviews the applications and the interview scores each year and has to determine how many grants we can fund, I can assure you every dollar matters. So the students will tell you shortly, but please mark your calendars for next year. It'll be February 2nd, Groundhog's Day, for our 25th Inspiration Awards, which proves to be, I promise you, it will be even more special. But finally, tonight's event is primarily coordinated by the EPIC student leadership, and it's been a pleasure working this year with this year's co-chairs. They've worked very hard, and to express their gratitude and announce the total amount raised through this evening for summer grants, I invite to the stage the 2020 Inspiration Awards co-chairs, Stephanie, Sam, and Matt. Please give them a round of applause.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Bauer. With me is Sam Riley and Matt Rohr. We are the co-chairs of this year's Inspiration Awards. I want to start by thanking our amazing honorees. You all are incredible role models and examples of the attorneys we hope to become someday. I hope it's not cheesy to say, but I, like I'm sure many of us here, am truly inspired. To the sponsors, professors, and attendees in the audience, we thank you as well. It's amazing to see such a diverse group of people from a wide variety of jobs, all here to recognize the importance of public interest and pro bono work. EPIC grants and a lot of what EPIC is able to do would not be possible without all of your support. And finally, thank you to our wonderful EPIC board, to Dean Sheffy and Blakely with the Center for Public Service, and to our fantastic volunteers and future EPIC grant recipients.
Last year at this event, we announced that we had raised $120,000 for EPIC grants. By the summer, Dean Sheffy was able to find one-time additional funds totaling $160,000 for 31 EPIC grants. And before I reveal tonight's number, I must make a not-so-subtle plug that we are still accepting donations. And compared to last year's $120,000, as of tonight, we have already raised $140,487.
Again, thank you, everyone. We hope that you'll join us for next year's Inspiration Awards, as Dean Sheffy said, the 25th Annual Awards on February 2nd. Now, everybody else can head downstairs for food and drinks at the reception. Our student ushers will point you in the right direction, so if you get lost, just look for somebody pointing their hands like this. But please keep in mind there are 3 staircases and 2 elevators that can take you down there. We ask that honorees, presenters, and the Epic e-board stick around and come up to the stage in a second for some photos. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.